My name is Huzeyfe Kocabas, and I'm a PhD student in computer science at Utah State University. Today, I will be presenting our paper, which is comparing the user's perceptions with the data practices of IoT devices. Okay. Internet of Things, or IoTs, are referring to the billions of physical devices around the world that are now connected to the internet, all collecting and sharing data. I mean, these IoT devices includes smart watches, smart speakers, smart light bulbs, smart plugs that we use, that we started to use every day. So they started to become really popular. Like one study in 2016 showed that 2/3 of Americans own at least one IoT device, and another graph shows that in below, like while we have only around 9 billions of IoT devices in 2012, now in 2020 we have around 50 billions IoT devices in the world. Even though IoT started to become really popular, attackers' focus also goes into the hacking to the IoT devices as well. For example, one recent news in 2020 showed that one hacker leaks passwords for more than 500,000 servers, routers, and IoT devices. Another recent news also showed that it is possible to hack networks using the smart light bulbs. And we also seen in 2019, it is possible to hack Ring home security cameras. And another news also, these are only the few of the news that I selected on the internet. So our study was focused on how users perceive information collection by IoT devices happening, how users perceive of information sharing with third-party entities by the IoT devices. And we also finally looked up how users perceive data protection strategies adopted by the IoT devices. And in addition to these questions, we also checked how users' perceptions are varied between the actual privacy policy data. So our methodology was started with a user study, which is a mixed-based study, including the Qualtrics survey and semi-structured interview questions. And based on this user study, we collected participants' perceptions and compared these perceptions with the actual privacy policy. We are comparing these two concepts. We mainly focused on information collection, sharing, and protection. So after this comparison, we found matches and mismatches between the user's perceptions and the actual privacy policy data. So we selected 28 IoT devices for our study from the list of IoT devices compiled by Mozilla Foundation, where the devices are divided into different categories, such as the health and exercise, entertainment, smart homes, toys and games, and pets. This categorization is based on their core service and functionality. We conducted a series of focus group discussions among our researchers in this project and with our colleagues to finalize our device selection. And after we finalized the device selection, we came up with these selections. For example, for the health and exercise categorical IoT devices, we selected following IoT devices. We mainly selected smart watches, smart wearables, and for example, smart water bottles and biking system. For the entertainment categorical IoT devices, we selected like smart headphones, smart earplugs, PS4, Roku device, and Apple device. For the smart homes, we selected smart speaker systems, like the Nest systems that can be used to heat, like to check home temperatures. We selected like smart coffee machines, smart light bulbs, and smart plugs. For toys and games, like these are mainly small gadgets that can be, like most of them, many of them can be programmable and can interact with humans in some way. We also selected DJI Spark Mini, which is a drone that can be used for people, and Amazon Fire tablets specifically for designed for children. For pets categorical IoT devices, we selected like the devices, smart devices that can track our pets, or that can provide some food to our pets, etc. We also, like in the light of the prior work and the privacy policy of selected devices, we identified the following 9 categories of information that are generally collected by a device or service provider, where each type of information is divided into subcategories as follows. For example, like personal information includes name, gender, and date of birth, contacts information, financial information, health information, and location and media information. Connected device information, what that means is, like, we ask to participants whether these IoT devices collect or share any type of information, any of these categories information. And connected device information is if the IoT device collects any information from the connected devices, such as like the contact list from a smartphone. Online social media information is like we asked again to participants if IoT device, if they perceive the IoT devices collect online social media information, such as friend list using Facebook app or Instagram app, etc. And we also asked them whether the IoT devices, whether they think IoT devices are collecting or sharing IoT device usage information from their devices. And our methodology is based on the lab-based study sessions that we created, individual study sessions for each participant. We collected 42 participants, and 16 of them females, 25 of them males, and 1 other. And age range was in between 18 to 64. However, most of the participants are in between 18 to 34 ages. And we also found in demographics, none of our participants reported any background in cybersecurity. Our study, as I mentioned, was a mixed-based study that was including the survey that we designed on Qualtrics, and it was also including the semi-structured interview questions that we asked to participants. So each participant was presented with 4 IoT devices, and for each device, participants reported their perceptions of information collection and sharing for the 9 categories of information that I mentioned earlier. And they also reported their perceptions of security and privacy strategies that they perceive those IoT devices adapt or not adapt any security or privacy strategies or not. And average completion time for the study for each participant was 45 minutes. So once we collected the data, we found that participants perceive their contact information was collected by the IoT devices more than the other types of categories of information. And this information was followed by personal information, location information, and IoT device usage. in the graph that we can see that like each IoT device categories that are highlighted by different colors, and we will follow the same color principles for the other graphs that I will present next. So when we check, like when we look up the participants' perceptions, participants think entertainment focused IoT devices are collecting more data than the other IoT devices. And when we participants also reported pets types of pets focused IoT devices are collecting least amount of data across across 5 different IoT categories that we asked to them. And we also found some relation, like participants create some relation between the IoT device categories and the information categories that we presented to them. For example, they, like most of the participants, think that like health and exercise focused IoT devices are collecting health information more than the other IoT device categories. When we ask participants reasons like what are the reasons of IoT, what are the reasons of collection of these IoT devices collect information from you, participants reported the most common reason that we found was the core functionality. They think that like the IoT devices require their data to maintain its core functionality. And the second most common reason that we found out was participants said improving the functionality of the IoT device. And the third one was personalized service. What that means is like the IoT devices require their information to give some personalized service to its users. So after we looked up participants' perceptions, we compared these perceptions with the actual privacy policy data for data collection. And we found matches and mismatches. In this table, in the left part, we can see from the rows for each information type, and for each column, we listed, each column shows the IoT device categories. So, and we found some not available information when we highlighted them in the table. That what that means is like we couldn't find if the IoT device mentioned that particular information collection strategy in their privacy policy or not. So we couldn't find that, so we highlighted that in our table. We think that we determined that no-yes mismatches was the most critical mismatch between the user's perceptions and the actual privacy policy data. What that means is users think their data was not collected by the IoT devices. However, in real, like privacy policies mentioned that their data, like the user's data, was collected by the IoT devices. For example, we found around 96% mismatch between the financial data collection by the pets categorical IoT devices. And we also found that most no-yes mismatches based on the categories for data collection was grouped into the entertainment, and followed by pets categorical IoT devices, and followed by toys and games IoT devices. For data sharing, once we check our participants' perceptions, we found participants perceive their data was shared by the third parties less than the information collection. As we can see from the percentages numbers, while we had around 80 or 90% for information collection, For data collection, data sharing, or information sharing, participants perceive that their data is less shared with the third parties. And the most common perceptions, the most common information types that participants think their data was shared by third parties was personal information, contact information, location, and IoT device usage. And when we ask participants, like when we check our data, what is the most common IoT device category that participants think their data was shared by third parties, they think that entertainment-focused IoT devices are sharing their data more than the other IoT device categories. And participants also perceive that pets categorical IoT devices are sharing least amount of data than the other IoT device categories. And we also seen something interesting, like when participants perceive, while participants perceive their personal information was shared by entertainment focused IoT devices above 80%, which we found participants perceive their data was shared by third parties for pets category below 30%, which was really low. Once we ask participants why companies or IoT devices share their data with third parties, they mentioned the most common reason was financial and business gain. And one specific participant mentioned that, I feel like most companies share whatever they can so that they can make money. And another most common reason was the improving the functionality of the IoT device. We also checked the matches and mismatches between participants' perceptions and the actual privacy policies, and we found matches and mismatches. And the most critical mismatch, again, was the no-yes mismatch that we determined. What that means, again, like participants perceive their data was not shared by the third parties. However, in privacy policies that they mentioned, those data was shared by third parties. And the most no-yes mismatches based on the categories was found in pets category, followed by toys and games category, and followed by entertainment category called IoT devices. We also checked participants' perceptions of security and privacy features, and participants reported toys and games focused IoT devices are having the security and privacy features adopted more than the other IoT categories. This is followed by pets category, followed by entertainment categorical IoT devices, and followed by health and exercise categorical IoT devices. And we also seen something interesting in our results, like participants perceive that smart homes doesn't provide a lot of security and privacy features for the users. We also checked whether these perceptions are matching or mismatching with the actual privacy policy data. And we determined that yes, no mismatches are the most critical mismatch for this particular subject. And for example, what that means is participants think that these IoT devices are provide to them security and privacy features. However, in the privacy policies, we couldn't identify any sentences or words that they mention they provide these features for the users. For example, we found a yes-no mismatch for health and exercise devices. Participants perceive that these health and exercise categorical IoT devices provide to them security and privacy features. However, when we check those IoT devices' privacy policies, we couldn't find any mentioned item related to this. We also found majority of the participants perceived IoT devices in PATS category encrypt their information during the storage. However, in real, like we couldn't find any information in the privacy policies for PATS categorical IoT devices. So to sum up and to come up with our implications, we found many mismatches between the user's perceptions and the actual privacy policies of IoT devices. And we've seen many misconceptions that may impact users' behavior. For example, users reported their financial and health data was not collected by the IoT devices. However, when we check our privacy policies of those IoT devices, we've seen that that's the opposite. And another one we've seen like participants perceive secure communication and storage in IoTs and behave based on this idea. However, when like those doesn't hold when we check the IoT devices privacy policies. When we ask participants, like, what are the common problems that they face when they read privacy policies, most of them mentioned like they were having problems about the excessive length, complicated language, or poor visualization of the privacy policies. And they also reported that like these privacy policies needs to be redesigned based on the IoT devices and information type individually. Sorry that this take a little longer than what I expected.
Oh, thank you
so much for listening.